About 4 years ago, I remember I was sitting there reading, and my cat was waiting by the door. His tail swinging back and forth, and he's just waiting there. He was waiting there for like an hour, excited about something, but very still. I didn't really know what he was doing, and I just kept reading. And all of a sudden, I heard this pounce, and the squeak, 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 and I'm like, oh my God, it's a mouse. He got a mouse. So I quickly got up, and I walked over there, and I squatted down, and he had his paw on this poor little mouse. This mouse was on his back, and his legs were just kicking, and he was squeaking and scared to death. And suddenly I just felt the fear in the mouse and this tremendous sympathy for that mouse. And I also loved my cat, and I knew that that was his, quote, genetic program. That was his, quote, instinct. I loved my cat. It wasn't his fault. Heck, I even got him toys that mimicked mice. He was following his genetic program. But in that moment, I loved my cat. I wasn't blaming him, even though that mouse would call my cat more evil than a human would call a demon. Because cats don't just kill you. They play with you. Would a mouse not call a cat the most evil thing ever? This poor little mouse is on his back, and Cosmo's got his paw on that mouse. And in that moment, suddenly the intention, looking back, I know now. I just experienced it then, now I understand. My love, and the love of the larger scalar spirit, came through. I loved my cat, and I loved that mouse. And I gently started petting my cat. I didn't restrain him, I didn't yell at him, I didn't hold him back, I didn't make him do anything. I just expressed my intention. Just the intention. It wasn't like I was trying to radiate energy at him. It just was what it was. And he picked up on it. I loved the mouse and I loved my cat. And then by himself, he took his paw off of the mouse. On his own. I didn't make him do it. And then that mouse turned over and slowly walked away right in front of him. And I was so proud of him. It was the love that was able to override and command the ego of my cat. It wasn't my mind commanding his mind. It was the love and intention of the spirit. It changed his DNA. In that moment, he was not a predator. He decided to let that mouse go. So what is a predator then? Other than a perversion of DNA. You weren't around for the original history, the original flora and fauna of planet Earth. They created the food chain on purpose, a long time ago, and with ease. So easy you have no idea the complexity of this consciousness. But love can turn a predator into a non-predator, meaning if love creates everything, and there's a disconnection here, it is the disconnection that is the problem, not any being that is disconnected. And if love can make a cat let go of a mouse, something it wants so bad, right? Its mind, its instinct. Oh, they don't want anything more than that. He took his own paw off. I didn't make him. Why? Why would that work? Why was it pure love? Because I wasn't yelling at him, and I wasn't making him feel guilty either. I didn't make him feel like a lesser creature for doing that to the mouse. I caught it, and love says, move on. I'm not going to hold you in guilt. Just understand. I love you too, and I'm not going to punish you or anything. I want you to understand right now. If I were to yell at him, that would have just exacerbated his predator instinct. If I tried to restrain him, that would have, with a bipolar mind, the mind mechanism, would have just activated him as a predator by making him feel guilty so he backlashes against it, right? It's like going up to an alcoholic and yelling at him for being an alcoholic. What are they going to do? Probably go to the store and buy a six-pack because you exacerbated the addiction. So I know that love can override these things, and I know that if that happened, then everything you think is not. Predator? I don't think so. I think things are going to change. And one thing I sense from the creative spirit is confidence. I mean, it's confident. It's not here to judge anything. It's here to fix it. If you get an injury in your body, you allocate more of your spiritual essence to that injury in that moment. Now, to those cells, it could seem like a real long time. Different scalar time reality. And you're thinking, well, how could God let this happen? Well, understand something. Imagine being the creative spirit. It's just you, right? You're all alone and you know it. Let's pretend there's a starting point. You know you're all there is. You're the largest of the large. You're not sitting there thinking you're going to meet somebody else. If you are, then you're not what I'm talking about. We'll have to go up in the scale. I'm talking about the creative spirit, right? And you have all this love, and that's your catalyst for creation. The fact that you're alone and you have love. Makes sense, right? If you're all alone, you want companionship. And if you're going to create, and this obviously is more than dissociation, this is divine creation we're talking about. And if you're going to do that, you're not going to make puppets that you control their every move. Why? Well, because you're doing it because you want life around you, companionship around you. You need it to be genuine. You're not going to get company or companionship by putting on a puppet show for yourself. Especially if you know you're doing it, you know? So you have to have free will, or a mind. And you can create beings that can go from one body to another body, to one world to another world, and have layers like that, sure. And you enjoy it because it's interesting to see how they perceive your creations, what they do with it, how they express it, and that's part of the enjoyment. And so you have to have free will for that, for your own needs, and it just works out that way. And it's all intertwined anyway in the scalar reality. But with free will, hey, you can ride your bike and fall off and skin your knee and bang it up. And the skin cells could be like, how could God let this happen, you awful God? You could lie in the sun too long and damage some cells and traumatize them, and then the consciousness in that cell disconnects from you and puts a bubble around itself out of fear and pain, and then tries to survive and perhaps becomes cancerous, which can be healed with love, by the way. You can stub your toe. The bone cells in your toe could be like, oh, it must be a bad God. How could this happen? Well, that's part of free will. It just is. It's just part of free will. And listen, if you had to choose and do it all over again to avoid the pains that may happen here and there, would you substitute that for a puppet show for yourself? Be honest with yourself. If you were all alone, wouldn't you want to take of yourself and make something real? Or would you just sit there and make a puppet show for yourself? You would only make a puppet show if you're in horrible fear. If you're feeling attacked, maybe you don't recognize the larger part of yourself anymore, like cancer. You call it Satan. Well, its creations are puppets, because to it can't afford to give free will. It's trying to defend itself against love. That's not going to carry on. Satan in this world plays God and the devil, if you haven't figured that out yet. That's why it runs the Christianity system and it runs Satanism. It's both. Demons play both. That's what they do, because it mimics this whole thing, like I've talked about in The Healing Begins Now. So the part of Satan that will be receptive to the love will be the part of you that receives the love as well. The good part, right? Now the good is not the same thing as the creative, calm spirit that is tremendously entertained and not bored